Welcome back to the Skillwork Forum. I am your guest host for the day, Connor. And today we're diving into a big question that's facing manufacturers everywhere, which is how do you future-proof your operations? I think we all know that the skilled trade shortage is not really going anywhere. But what if there was a more holistic way to approach and solve that problem? So that's what today's episode is all about. And this is the idea of the total talent solution. I'm joined today by Brett Elliott, our CEO here at Skillwork. Brett, thank you.
Yes, thanks. I'm glad to be here, Connor. And so I agree. I think this is a really important conversation. It's one I like to dig into. Connor just said a second ago, the problem's not going away. And so just to kind of back that up where it's just not, taking our word for it, there was just a recent March of this year Deloitte report that basically gave updated data that showed that the current shortage in the industrial manufacturing space is about 450,000. That number really wasn't overly shocking compared to what the last few years, but it said anticipated to grow to 1.9 million by 2033. So I think the conversation is still really relevant, why we want to have it today.
Absolutely. Let's kind of start there. When you or folks on our team are out in the field and they're talking to our clients, what is the conversation that's happening right now about the skilled trade shortage? What's kind of out there in the zeitgeist, if you will?
Yeah, at Skillwork. So we've been doing this for. I started Skillwork 7 years ago. Before that, I spent 30 plus years in the manufacturing space, and it's interesting because I don't know that the conversation has changed that much. The problems, if anything, I think the the reality is coming. I think when in the early days when we had the shortage pre-pandemic, we came through the pandemic, people almost thought, well, once everybody comes back to work, then the problem somehow, maybe it will get better. It didn't because it was there before. And then with the other things. So the conversations are the same. We literally, if I knew how many times in conversations, whether we're at a trade show or we're, having an early conversation with a client, usually they look at you with a lot of skepticism as to, how are you going to find the talent? Because clearly their issue is production downtime, burnout of their teams, the list of efficiencies. I probably had more conversations. I was at a trade show last week there's a consistent, I would say one thing that is newer to the conversation of companies saying we have from the C-suite, they're pushing down huge objectives to become more automated. Mm-hmm. And what we're pushing up from the production floor is telling them that's great, but we don't have the talent to run this equipment. Yeah. So that's probably the newest conversation or the one that's growing. So.
Yeah. And would you say that this is a problem that can be solved in the short term, or would you see this as more of this is something that you have to play the long game to solve if you're at a facility?
Yeah, I think, the idea of throwing a Band-Aid on this or, what I sometimes call, the hope strategy isn't going to work. You're going to, the companies that I see right now that I'd just say are just a little bit ahead of maybe where some of the others are is they're looking at this from a more of a holistic approach, as we say. Yeah. They're looking at a total talent strategy, as we talked. They're I think I probably borrowed that from a company that I think is just a little bit ahead of at least recognizing. Mm-hmm. Now they're then having to find companies like us to partner with, but they're at least recognizing, we gotta look at this differently. Yeah. Type of thing. So I think it is a more kind of a holistic approach. The idea that, run an ad, somebody shows up at your plant, those days have been gone for a while.
Yeah. So. Let's talk about that a little bit more, because I've been hearing you beat this drum for a bit now. you've been talking a lot about this idea of a total talent solution. What, if there's folks out there that haven't heard that before, what does that really mean for you and for those listening?
Yeah, I think to kind of break it down, I'll kind of give it to us in a large format, and then maybe we'll break down, a little bit more detail of those individuals. So I started talking about, a while ago, the four-legged stool or a total talent solution. And what I mean by that is that companies really need to have a foot in each of these categories, I believe, to truly solve the skilled talent shortage. I don't think one without the other is necessarily going to work. Basically, at a high level, at the front end of that, is early education. We've been talking, you can get into all kinds of conversations with people about, hey, we took vocational schools out of the high schools years ago, 20 years ago. That began this slow slip of talent. So getting the youth, whether it be fifth grade, sixth grade, whatever, getting them back engaged that hey, there may be a career there. That's a piece of that. We advocate for that. We don't participate in that at Skillwork. The second piece, which we don't participate in either, but we advocate strongly for, is upskilling your talent. Yep. And then the third and the fourth, which are the two areas that we live in and have really tried to perfect our processes around, are an augmented approach, which basically means that we find, vet, and then deploy it to you. We'll unpack that a little bit. And then using our same processes to find you direct hire employees. So collectively, those if you have inside of your workforce solution or your total talent strategy, you've got a plan in all of those. Yep. You're ahead of the game. Yeah. And so
it sounds like it. That instead of just chasing, as you said, Band-Aid fixes. It really takes a well-rounded approach if you're really going to get serious about solving the skilled trade shortage.
Yeah, 100%. And I could sit here. I mean, it'd be self-serving for us at Skillwork for me to say, you need to think, and you do, but you that a contingent workforce or a traveling model, bringing the talent to you where you need it, when you need it. That's the 100% solution. It'd be good for us, right, but I don't really believe that's necessarily true. Or hey, we've got such good vetting processes, we can find you. I think it's truly we recognize is that we want companies. I love the manufacturing space, and so we want companies to be healthy. We want their employees to be healthy. Our number 3 value is to measure our success by the number of people and companies we positively impact. And so I think by doing that, so we know you need to be changing the way that talent is coming, and then upskilling, and then the kind of the other pieces. So.
I'll stop you there so that way we can dive into each of these in turn. Because you've talked about this a couple of ways, a four-legged stool, 4 pillars, whatever you want to call them, and you just broke them down. It was education, upskilling, contingent workforce, and direct hire searches. So break down the first one there. So early childhood advocacy, STEM education, things like that. How do you see that helping the problem?
I think it's a must. I think the challenge with it is, it's kind of the old saying, when, I'm going to mess up the saying, but, the best day to plant a tree is 20 years ago or today. Sure. And so, the challenge is with the early education advocacy is we're really behind the 8 ball now. Right. But you got to start. Yeah. And they are starting. You take Scouting USA, for example, and schools. We're starting to see some high schools bring vocational programs back. We're definitely seeing it, in the vocational schools, in the junior colleges. But the key is what we want to do at Skillwork is we want to encourage that. we're willing to write checks to programs that are doing that. Where the reality is, this, I don't know, this may not be all that popular to say, but I don't think it'll offend too many people. If 10 years ago, if your child had a lean towards technical expertise and so forth, it was probably a good idea to go, hey, you learn how to code, you can make a living,
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, now you're probably not going to make a living. and so
Thanks,
that
ChatGPT.
same technical expertise with the level of automation that we're seeing in these production facilities, that same kid over here that went to work for Google or Facebook before is going to have a great career. But we got to let them know it's there. We got to show it to them. We got to get them into STEM. We got to start to plant those seeds. So I mean, it's really that simple. It's STEM programs. It's supporting the Scouts and there's lots of others, the vocational schools. And so companies need to they need to get involved. It's I had a guy tell me one time, we didn't create this problem overnight. We're not going to solve it overnight. I think they had actually, I don't know how they came up with it. They did a study and came up that that through what we're talking about here, like it was going to be a 17-year solution. But hey, you got to start.
Yeah, we got to start digging ourselves out of that hole.
Yeah.
So that's pillar number one. The second is upskilling. So facilities themselves, upskilling maybe greener talent or upskilling guys or gals that they have into these new automated type roles and things like that. What are you seeing out there? The companies are doing this well in the world of upskilling.
Yeah, I think it's big. Again, it's not something we participate in today. We're a big advocate of upskilling. We're a big advocate of training. We take what we call skill workers, the people that we put into the field that work for us, and we train them. We do it, but we very much advocate for companies, to upskill your talent, to take either your current maintenance or maybe somebody that has that ability, on your production floor and get them exposed through apprenticeship programs. And there are some companies we had on, I don't have any idea what number podcast it was, but we had a gentleman on from Kawasaki a while back, and they're doing it. I mean, you want to study somebody that's doing it well.
Yeah.
And so they're doing apprenticeship programs. They're really bringing people up through their system, they've been doing it for a while, and so now they're reaping the benefit of that. There's companies, we do some partnering with from a marketing perspective of a company called MST. I should know what that stands for, but
multi-skills training.
There we go, multi-skills training.
There you go, guys.
And so they're out there doing some really good work. There's other platforms. So 100% huge advocate. Upskill your people, invest in them.
And not to mention the value that brings to the workers themselves. I mean, how many stories have we heard of guys that are like, I was just a production guy, and then they sent me to a class, I got this skill, and now I'm able to provide for my family in this way. And we see that all the time. So it's a benefit to the facility. It's a benefit to the worker. It raises the bar all the way across.
100%. We've had guys personally in our system who have been with us, and we sent off to get different skills, whether it be ammonia refrigeration certifications or skills training, whatever. And literally they've gone from, before I came to Skillwork, I was making $24 an hour. Now I'm a Cert 2 this or that, and I'm making $34 an hour.
Yeah.
Significant difference for their family.
It's huge.
Is the skilled labor shortage hurting your company's bottom line? Skillwork is the premier staffing agency focusing exclusively on skilled labor. Our team of highly skilled workers augments your existing teams for elevated impact and decreased downtime. Partnering with hundreds of facilities in more than 30 states, we deploy our traveling industrial technicians to work for you on a contract basis. Our philosophy is simple: to honor God in all we do, bring respect back to the skilled trades, and positively impact those around us. For more information on how Skillwork can deliver the top labor talent you need, visit skillwork.com or call us at 402-447-7058. Call us today to see how Skillwork can work for you.
That's great. Well, let's hit our bread and butter. So the third leg of the stool, or the third pillar, if you will, is augmented or contingent staffing. I think this is one of the biggest parts of what we do. And why do you think this is an important part of the solution? Not the whole solution, but an important part of the solution.
Yep. Well, it's really what I mean. It as Connor just alluded to, it is our bread and butter. When I started Skillwork, I wanted to bring a different model, a different solution to the problem, and short version, I copied the travel nursing model. I saw what they had done in the healthcare industry 35, 40 years ago to help a skilled nursing shortage that has now grown to be 7, 8, 9% of the total healthcare. And I saw that, and I saw the ability to be able to look outside of your local area, go find the talent, really vet it really, really well, which is arguably what the staffing industry hadn't quite figured out yet. And so that is our bread and butter. It is what that solution. I had a client tell me early on, when it was the same client that said, our studies show that it's going to take 17 years between the early education or early advocacy education and the upskilling. It'll take us 17 years. And he basically said, I need you to augment my team because I don't have 17 years.
Sure.
And basically, like we said, it's those early things that we're big proponents of are a tomorrow solution for a today problem.
Sure.
And so why I believe strongly that one of the key legs of the stool, because it's the unique solution. When we talk to lots of clients in every day, every week, and it's still like, oh, I didn't know that was out there.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was an option. So it's still an education for us, but it's a key component. It's again, it's a four-legged stool for a reason. It stands up better with all four legs. So I think it's a critical piece. I don't want to totally unpack, or spend a lot of time today in the details of what our model does. Obviously, Connor will give you an opportunity to connect with us on that, but I don't believe you're going to have a healthy solution without at least the first three. Mm-hmm. And then I think the fourth one, which we'll talk about here in a second, I think is key as much as anything, because we know every client wants it.
Right.
And so,
yep, absolutely. So you would say the contingent piece of it, the augmented staffing piece, that is almost it's your quick fix, if you will. We can get you, in our model, we can get you talent quickly, highly qualified, highly vetted, ready to hit the ground. So while you've got your help immediately, then that introduces leg number 4.
Yep.
So while we can get you the help right away, you want your longer term bench of full-time talent. And that's the fourth piece, which is direct hire search. So talk to me a little bit about that, and why does that kind of belong in this conversation?
Well, I think it belongs in the conversation. And for full disclosure, I was arrogantly adamant in the first 7 years that we were not a direct hire staffing company.
Sure.
And the reason was not because I thought it was a bad idea or because I didn't know that's what clients want. For that exact reason, that model of direct hire, headhunter, whatever you want to call it, was a very known model.
Sure. I
knew, and I still believe to this day, if that was the answer, the 100% answer to this problem, Skillwork the augmented piece would have never worked.
Yeah.
So we had to prove the augmented piece was part of the solution. Every client would ask us for direct hire employees.
Right.
So it wasn't that we just said, oh, well, here's an opportunity to make a few bucks. Is we looked at it and said, what we've gotten really, really good at is in our process is how to find, vet, and in our augmented, then deploy that talent. The vetting piece is significant to what we do. We take hundreds of candidates that if you were trying to work through in a facility would be overwhelming. We take hundreds, if not thousands of candidates, and we vet that down to a very narrow group that meets our qualifications, that meets our clients' qualifications, more importantly, and we put that out there. What we recognized is that 7 years in, that I felt confident that now with companies who were willing to, at least if they don't totally agree with me that you need a total talent strategy, that they would at least, maybe play along with us for a while and see if maybe this crazy guy might be onto something, was that we could take that same process, not a traditional headhunter, kind of a process, but take our vetting process that we have perfected and we've got proprietary testing, all things, and apply it to that. So now when we go to a client who wants to partner with us in this full solution, and we'll just make up a number today and say that they say, hey, I'm 10 short. I need 10 of these. And our answer, our ask to them would be, well, we can get you 10, in a relatively, reasonable amount of time, weeks, not months or years. Sure. Right. And, but what we can also do is while we're doing that, we have a dedicated team over here who can begin to use our same vetting process to find you full-time employees, because we know 100% every client wants a full team of their own employee. We get that. I personally don't think we're ever going to get back to that. If you want the talent, if you want true talent, you're going to probably have some portion of it is going to be contingent. But we recognize that. So we're trying to offer our clients, what they're asking for, but not just any, it's not like you're calling up the guy you called last week to find you an IT person. Yeah. I can't find you an IT person, so don't call me. But I can find you skilled maintenance talent using that. So I think the combination of those four will get us, it'll definitely move companies in a healthy direction.
That's great. I love that. Well, as we kind of start to land this conversation, I know as we talk about these four different elements, for some folks that can just sound overwhelming. You read a book and it's got 47 takeaways, and realistically, you're probably going to do one or two. So if you're a plant manager, HR manager, or something like that, and you're hearing this and you're kind of a little bit overwhelmed, like, I don't have 17 years. What would you say is what's step one?
I think step one, the easy step one is engage us in a conversation, but I really think step one is to, think beyond, just the immediate fire. Sure. We talked about in a recent podcast about just the pressure to fill these roles, and you start to the urgency starts to cause you to make some bad decisions. So I think step one is to really look at it and say, are there some other things? Do we need to look at this more broadly, more holistic? Right. And so I do think that's step one. The easy step is reach out to us and have a conversation. There's no obligation, and so, but I do think that's where it kind of starts.
I think that's great. Last question for you, and this will just be a layup. Would you say that right now, that when you think about the future of manufacturing talent, just given everything we've talked about, would you say that you're optimistic?
I am. I said it a minute ago. I love the manufacturing space. I think it's. I've gotten to spend a lot of years in. I think it's super cool to see, how we make things and how we do things. So I know how important the industrial manufacturing space is to our country and to the world, and so it is solvable.
Yeah.
The talent, believe it or not, I know if you're a maintenance manager, you're going, I can't find anybody. The talent is out there. Mm-hmm. You just got to think a little differently. You got to have a strategy. You probably need a partner. But I'm very optimistic about that. Now I will say, if you're stubborn and you want to keep just kind of running your head into the wall, I'm not as optimistic for those.
That's fair. I think that's fair. I love that. Well, thank you. Thank you for having that. Really, I think it's a really important conversation. I think it's really helpful. And I hope it's really helpful for those of you that are out there listening. So if you're out there and you're ready to explore what a total talent solution might look like for you and your facility or facilities, we'd love to have that conversation with you. You can visit us at skillwork.com to learn more. Just connect with us directly. But in the meantime, thank you for joining us on the Skillwork Forum. Thank you for being with us today. And we will see you all next time. God bless.
This is Brett Elliott, CEO and co-founder at Skillwork. Prior to starting Skillwork, I spent over 30 years in the food manufacturing space. From literally starting out cleaning the restrooms to becoming the maintenance manager, then the plant manager, to eventually becoming the president and owner, I've seen the manufacturing world from many perspectives. And like many of you, I've seen firsthand the growing need for higher skilled workers, while at the same time experiencing the shortage of this skilled talent. I started Skillwork to address that need. I knew the headhunter and the local temp agency models were not the solution. If you're experiencing the same shortage of talent at your facility, we would love to connect you with our team. Give us a call at 402-447-7058 or visit us online at skillwork.com.